How to thrive during a recession. The video. So this is a frightening time to live in. Times certainly are changing. Coronavirus is causing entire states to shut down. The stock market and economies are cratering like nothing I've ever seen before. And that's not hyperbole. Literally, this stock market crash could be worse than the 2008 stock crash. The ensuing recession that will follow inevitably due to the fallout from said state lockdowns and market crashes will surely be pretty bad. And that's not even the bad news. The bad news is it's likely going to get worse. Is there good news? Yes, there is good news. The good news is that it's going to get better someday. Figuring out how to position yourself to not only bounce back, but to thrive during bad economic times is how people go from average to great, in terms of their finances at least. And we're going to discuss that on this video, so stay tuned. What's up, you guys? You're watching BTP Fusion, where it's our mission to inspire you to take action on your business and finance using the power of technology. Help us in the mission by pounding that like button and dropping us a comment if you like what we have to say. And especially if you don't like what we have to say. We're not perfect here, and we appreciate the input from our viewers to help us improve and deliver the content that's needed in today's economy and in tomorrow's economy. So if I said it once, I said it 1,000 times. Downturns in markets happen. They've been a part of the history of economics ever since two people started trading lambskin pelts thousands of years ago. They come around for different reasons and at different times, and to different market sectors or to the whole market in general, often for completely unforeseen reasons. The economic crash of 2008 happened due to unseen weaknesses in what's called a collateralized debt obligation, or CDO, which is a type of derivative. A lot of institutions thought that they were easy money, not realizing that the debt obligations underlying them were essentially worthless, as people weren't able to pay back the mortgages for a number of different reasons. This current crisis came completely out of left field and is the result of total shutdowns of economic activity by various local, state, and national authorities as they attempt to deal with the fallout of the coronavirus. Or should I say the fallout of a coronavirus? As the CDC tells us, coronaviruses are responsible for 30% of colds. Link in the description. But this particular instance of a coronavirus, COVID-19, is particularly more deadly than your common flu, and thus justifies extreme measures in an attempt to stave off a very deadly outbreak. Even though, to this point in time, the common flu has killed a couple of orders of magnitude more people during the same time period. But whatever, I'm not a virologist. I don't even play one on TV. And I didn't even stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. So I'm pretty sure my commentary on this subject won't really hold any water. I am, however, trying to get the point across to you that economic crises happen for any number of reasons, and that people mostly never see them coming. However, if you're prepared for them, you can weather the storm and even be in a position to come out stronger than you were before. It's all about how you position yourself and how you prepare yourself for such calamities. Now, in previous videos, I talked about the order of operations of wealth creation, or OOC for short. And yes, that is the world's worst acronym. The advertising guys are working on a fix. I'm not sure when they're going to get back to me. In short, it basically describes a list of how you become wealthy if you start with nothing. 1, get a skill. 2, become the best at that skill, or at least approach being the best. 3, get an emergency fund. Very useful in times like these. And also, you can do this at any point in the order of operations, and you really should be saving at every point. Step 4, invest the rest for success. That said, in the middle of a panic and a market downturn, these steps can seem like a little bit of a moot point.
How do you expect me to save an emergency fund when I'm just trying to get by?
There's no way I'm going to invest in this market, dude. It just keeps going lower and lower. How am I supposed to be the best at what I do if no one will hire me?
Those are all legitimate criticisms, and quite frankly, questions for which there are no easy answers. The truth is, during an economic recession, you're kind of stuck at what you have when you have it. If you have a very small emergency savings fund, you're going to have to deal with that. If you have a larger emergency savings fund, you're in a better position than most. One of the important things to do in a recession, or any emergency as a matter of fact, is not to panic. Even though for this particular downturn, it could be one of the worst that has occurred since the Great Depression. Me personally, I'm of the opinion that this downturn could make the economic collapse of 2008 look like a walk in the park, and the Great Depression of the late 20s and early 30s to appear as though it were a bump in the road. Mostly because the panic over the virus is causing entire industries to shut down, and that is going to put millions of people out of work. Very similar to the Great Depression. In 2008, while the job losses were great, I don't think the unemployment rate ever got over 10%. That rate was a high watermark for the Great Depression. And I feel similar numbers will happen during this panic, officially dubbed the Corona Crisis, by yours truly. Like I said though, it's probably going to get much worse before it gets better. But it will get better. And if you're smart and if you don't panic, you can come out of this better than you were before. How you say? Let's take a look. How do you come out of a recession greater than when you entered in? Well, for one, you need to study the phases of a recession. You need to study what causes them, how people lived during them, and how they ended. As an example, something that's not quite understood by most folks is that most people, when they're in a recession or an economic downturn, don't even realize it until well after it started. On the flip side, most people don't know that the economy is expanding until well after that begins as well. A quick example of that would be the US economy during the last Great Recession. In the fourth quarter of 2007 until the second quarter of 2009, the US economy's real GDP rate contracted by 4.2%. At that point, the economy had officially been in a recession. Layoffs didn't really pick up steam until February of 2008, almost a full year later, and didn't peak until February 2010, losing 8.8 million jobs in the process. Conversely, it felt like the recession lasted much longer than it really did. It was all over except for the singing by June of 2009. But because unemployment lingered for such a long time, as a lagging indicator, it felt like it lasted much, much longer. Another point, right before recessions, markets tend to either hold steady or rise precipitously before they fall off, like in the Great Depression. From May to September of 1929, the stock market rose approximately 20% before the fateful September 3rd day, where it cratered like a rock. Conversely, during the Great Recession, financial issues were well known and preceded the recession. The financial crisis of 2007 to 2010 included the collapse of Bear Stearns, the bailout of AIG, and other large financial institutions. The Federal Reserve did everything that it could to keep economic expansions going by lowering their primary discount rate, secondary discount rate, as well as the Fed funds rate. With that in mind, it's not enough just to study the causes of an economic recession, or even the economic carnage that people and companies go through during a recession. You need to study the successes that happen during those rough times, as they can lead you to help find a path forward. For an example, Floyd Bostwick Odlum. Sort of an odd name, but in any case, Floyd was a corporate attorney who turned $39,000 into a multi-million-dollar fortune by investing in utility companies. Utilities companies were the growth engines of the 1920s, by the way, as they powered a brand new industry, electricity. He did see the greed in the marketplace, however, and wisely decided to sell what he had before the crash took off. That's an important point, by the way. Sell greed, buy fear. When the crash did eventually come, Floyd had millions of dollars of cash on hand, which was extremely rare for that time, as deflation was a major issue and very few people had a ton of cash at that time. With that cash, Floyd was able to buy failing companies at drastically reduced prices, and he either consolidated them or sold their assets off for even more cash. Another commonly overlooked example was the movie business. At the time, the movie business seemed like a terrible business to be in during the Depression. FYI, businesses that rely on discretionary income of their customers to grow tend to be bad businesses to be during beginnings of economic recessions, since those are the businesses that most people give up first as they tighten their belts. However, they're great businesses to get into after expansions pick up steam as people begin to have money in their wallets. But the movie business and Hollywood in general at the time relied on the discretionary income of its customers. Individual movie houses and production companies were in fierce competition with each other for viewers and revenue. They each one-upped each other in an attempt to get the edge, culminating in cutting-edge technology at the time, talking pictures, with film releases such as The Jazz Singer and I think the first Mickey Mouse cartoon, essentially heralding the end of the silent film era. It seemed like the industry was gaining momentum, but that momentum died fast as the Depression hit hard. At first, early in the crisis, many movie houses had to close their doors due to the decreased traffic and falling ticket prices. Eventually, this caused profitable studios to begin to show losses early into the 30s. That said, savvy movie moguls turned their lemons into lemonade. At this time, they began to feature prominently double features and giving folks 50% off and sometimes more for movies, realizing that people at this time just wanted an escape valve. Gimmicks like these and others helped to double box office takes from $480 million in 1933 to 810 million by 1941. Another mostly unknown success story is that of Procter & Gamble. P&G management realized that even in a depression, people still needed to buy soap. So instead of cutting advertising to save on costs, the company actively pursued new marketing avenues, including commercial radio broadcasts. It even started sponsoring daily cereals aimed at homemakers, the company's core demo, starting off with what was called Oxydol's own Ma Perkins. That was a heck of a name, but that was radio in the 1930s. This program went on to be such a smashing success that P&G went on to crank out similar programs to support other brands. By 1939, the company was producing 21 different serial radio programs, now officially dubbed soap operas. And by 1941, it started its own production division for said soap operas. By 1950, it made the first ongoing television soap opera, The First 100 Years. And those are just a couple of examples. After you've studied up on what makes people and companies successful during recessions, you have to do the one thing that nobody really does: take action. Those were definitely interesting anecdotes on the histories of certain industries. And it's always interesting to learn about the histories of economies and recessions. But it all means nothing if you don't take targeted action. Once you've studied what works, and you have an idea of how companies and individuals can not only survive, but thrive during bad economic times, it's important to take action. Remember, it's not enough to know what to do. You then have to do what you have to do. And by take action, I mean learn about industries with non-elastic demand, like consumer products. Things like food, clothing, and toilet paper. Essentials like that. Actually, toilet paper makers are probably raking in a ton of cash during this particular panic. Keep that in mind. But not just those, other industries that represent the future of our economy. In the 1930s, it was radio and television. In 2008, it was social media and the internet. In 2020, it's going to be artificial intelligence, 5G, the Internet of Things, automated driving vehicles, things of that nature. Position yourself appropriately. Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur? Someone who maybe doesn't want to own their own business, but is willing to help out someone who does own their own business? Well, make sure your skills are sharp and your resume is even sharper. If you do, you'll be in a position to profit. If you do, you'll be in a position to profit as the market turns back up and as people begin to focus on old and new growth industries. Are you an entrepreneur? Someone who doesn't want to work for a boss, but wants to be his own boss and own his own company and his own fate? Well, the same advice to you, but be ready to take risks when no one else is willing to dole out cash during economic downturns. Because cash is so tight, money for financing new ventures can be hard to come by. So your ideas are going to have to be clearly presented to stakeholders, and you may need to be generating revenue before cash for expansion is doled out. So that means testing your ideas in the marketplace. And I think the most important thing is to always be learning and always stay plugged in to industries that suit your aptitude and skill set. One of the best ways to stay up to date on the latest and greatest in business, personal finance, and technology is to subscribe to BTP Fusion. We drop new videos every week on that topic, and you definitely don't want to miss any of the action. And don't forget to hit the like button if this video brought you any value whatsoever. And if it didn't bring you any value whatsoever, let us know in the comments down below what you didn't like. Speaking of leaving things in the comments down below, what are your thoughts on the upcoming recession? How deep do you think it will be? And how long is it going to last? What are your plans to weather the storm as it approaches? Leave us comments down below. And remember, a goal without a plan is a wish. A goal with a plan and no action is a wish list. Take action on your business and finances using the power of technology, and we'll catch you later. Peace.